Hi you guys, and welcome to another week of true crime. Today we are going to be talking about the case of Etan Patz. If you haven't heard of Etan's case before, his disappearance is what started the stranger danger movement, according to Jacobin magazine. When Etan went missing in 1979, it seemed to cause a mass panic. His case is what led us to teaching our children not to talk to strangers in the first place. Parents were terrified after hearing his story. Etan had been walking to the bus stop by himself for the first time, only 2 blocks from his Manhattan apartment. He never made it to that bus stop, and suddenly his story was getting spread across the country. Etan has never been found and is presumed dead to this day. A man is currently behind bars for his disappearance, but is he truly the one responsible? Etan was the middle child, with an older sister and a younger brother. On the morning of May 25th, 1979, was the last day of school before Memorial Day weekend. According to the New York Times, Etan's mother ran an in-home daycare, was taking care of an additional toddler as well as her own children that day. Etan had been wanting more independence, so he took this as an opportunity to ask to walk to the bus stop alone for the first time. His parents decided to let him go, and it was the last time that they saw their son. When Etan did not return at the end of the day, his parents called around to find out that he never even made it to the bus stop that morning. Almost immediately, over 100 police officers were on the case of locating Etan. They were checking full city blocks, under cars, alleyways. They were even going through apartments of neighbors. At one point, they even ripped up a handyman's flooring because he had poured new concrete floors after Etan went missing, and he worked along the route that Etan would have went to the bus stop. They searched for his remains, but they came up empty-handed. The disappearance of Etan was being spread quickly, and Etan became one of the first missing kids with his photo on a milk carton. President Ronald Reagan made May 25th, the day Etan went missing, National Missing Children's Day. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children started in 1984 because of his story. Etan's photograph was everywhere, but he was nowhere to be found. Investigators followed multiple leads and continued to land nowhere, and eventually his case went cold. NBC News claims that Etan was legally declared dead in 2001, despite there being no body found or any convictions at this point. The police had a few suspects over the years. Jose Ramos, who had been in a relationship with Etan's babysitter at the time, became the prime suspect for his disappearance for years. In the early 1980s, Ramos was found with photographs of young boys in his backpack that did resemble Etan. He was arrested on molestation charges after trying to lure young boys to follow him to a drainage pipe he had been living in, but he wasn't convicted of these. In the mid-80s, he again faced child molestation charges for luring 3 boys onto his bus and assaulting them. In 1988, Ramos admitted to taking a young boy home the day of Etan's disappearance with the intention of molesting him. According to Daily Mail, after seeing Etan's photo, he admitted to being 90% sure that it was the same boy. He said that after, he left the boy on a subway. After he admitted this, he refused to answer any more questions or cooperate, so a case against him was pretty weak. Many were convinced Ramos was responsible for Etan's death. Even Etan's father became so convinced that he sent Ramos a letter twice a year, on Etan's birthday and the date that he went missing, asking, "What did you do to my little boy?" It was not until 2004, 25 years after Etan had gone missing, that Jose Ramos was found civilly liable for Etan's disappearance, but he couldn't be convicted on lack of evidence. In 2012, police got a tip to look into a man named Pedro Hernandez who had worked in a shop along Etan's route to the bus stop. Though Hernandez had never come up before as a suspect, multiple witnesses came forward claiming that Hernandez had confessed to them about murdering a child around the time of Etan's disappearance. They never reported this at the time because Hernandez was a mentally ill man with schizophrenia, so many believed that he had been having delusions, so his claims were not taken seriously. After the tip to investigate Hernandez, he was brought in for questioning and confessed to being responsible after he had been grilled for 6 hours in an interview that had not been recorded. He claimed to have lured Etan inside with the promise of a soda, choked him, and stuffed his body in a plastic bag inside of a box which he dumped a block away. He claimed that he thought the boy was still alive when he put him in the bag, and then he later recanted his entire confession. Hernandez's attorney claimed, "Mr. Hernandez appears to be the only witness against himself, and he is an unreliable witness." Pedro Hernandez was known to have schizophrenia. This causes hallucinations and delusions. Apparently, his IQ was borderline to mild mental retardation range. Around the time of Etan's disappearance, he had told multiple people he had killed a child, but he didn't offer many more details. 33 years after Etan had gone missing, Hernandez was brought in for questioning, only to confess after hours of being interviewed. During trial, there was no forensic evidence, no solid evidence at all, no body, nothing against this man. He had his lawyer explain his deep sympathy for the Patz family, but that he was an innocent man. See, it's possible that Hernandez was responsible, but to my friends who have seen Making a Murderer, I think that this sounds very familiar. In Hernandez's confession, which was recanted, he claimed to have dumped the boy in a box a block away from him. In the initial search for Etan, police claimed to have searched full city blocks and alleyways but found no trace of him. So, if Hernandez's confession were true, why wasn't Etan found during the initial search? Hernandez's first trial was announced a mistrial because a single jury member, Adam Sorois, was unable to reach a verdict. The Washington Post claims that he believed Hernandez's confession was bizarre, that his mental health was a huge factor in his decision. Sorois argued that, based on the evidence, Jose Ramos was responsible and not Pedro Hernandez. According to New York Daily News, other jurors claimed that they believed that there wasn't enough reason to claim Hernandez wasn't guilty, and that in court he did not appear to be a man separated from reality, but a man feeling remorse for what he had done. Just think about that for a moment. Hernandez was found guilty. Innocent until proven guilty was not made for men like him. You see, this was a man who suffered from hallucinations, delusions. The only solid claim against him was his own confession that was coerced out of him after hours of questioning. Also, this interview was not even recorded, so what did they say to him in the 6 hours it took before he confessed? This one solid claim was even recanted, so on what evidence was this man even convicted on? Hernandez could have been guilty, but there just does not seem to be enough evidence to make him seem responsible either. He fits the role, but so does Jose Ramos, who seems to have more evidence against him than Hernandez ever did. I'm sure you could argue hundreds of men and even women in New York at the time fit the same role, and it just doesn't seem that Hernandez has any more evidence against him than the next guy. Except for Jose Ramos. So, who really took Etan Patz? See, was it Ramos? And if it was, did Ramos put him on the subway like he said? And then did someone else finish the job? Or did Ramos actually kill Etan? Could Etan still be out there? Convicting Pedro Hernandez just seems like a mistake, and I do not believe that Etan has ever found justice.